Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching the special presentation of Sansad TV with your host Kriti Mishra. Today we have a very special guest in our studio. On 1st of February 2022, the 12th Parliament of Tanzania elected her as Speaker of the National Assembly. She became the second woman in Tanzania to serve in the highest position in Tanzania's National Assembly. She served as the President of the African Geopolitical Group of the IPU in 2023. She is also the Chairperson of the East African Community Speakers Bureau and the Chairperson of the Investment Board of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, African Region. She has been elected as the 31st President of the IPU by the IPU's Governing Council, its main decision-making body made up of parliamentarians from around the world. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Honourable Dr. Tulia Ackson. Excellency, welcome to Sansad TV and thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, thank you for having me.
This is your first visit to India as IPU President.
Yeah.
You've witnessed the proceedings of both houses of Parliament, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. You also witnessed the presentation of Union Budget. Tell us about your experience.
Well, there is always a chance to learn, but I'm very happy to be here. And yesterday, like you rightly said, I witnessed the Minister for Finance presenting the Union Budget, and which is very impressive in the sense that the priorities that have been set by the government, it was good to be part of the history that has been made, because also it is a historic budget from my understanding, because it's giving more empowerment to women, and I think there's a lot of hope for the people who are, not economically capable at the moment, being empowered by this budget that has just been read. But this morning I also visited the Rajya Sabha, and it was interesting to see also the minister was there, but today she wasn't reading her budget because I was informed it was tabled yesterday, but she was there to see the reception of how the upper house has received the budget. And so I listened mostly to the speech that was given by the leader of opposition, and then the walking out of the members of the Rajya Sabha from the opposition bloc. It was interesting to see how there are similarities, at the same time differences between our houses.
Fantastic to know about your experience, Madam. But talking about your stint as IPU President, Your Excellency, the IPU President is a very important position. The IPU President is the head of the Executive Committee, representative at the global events and gatherings. As a President, what are your priorities? The presidency of IPU you served for 3 years, and during the 3 years you're either going to implement the strategy that exists, or you're going to be part of the preparation of the other strategy that is going to come. So right now we have a strategy that runs from 2023 to 2022 to 2026, which it's being implemented under my presidency. But at the same time, I also have priorities as a president. So some of the priorities have to align with the strategy, and some of them you have to see how you're going to implement the strategy. At the same time, make sure what you wish the parliamentarians of the world to do. Like one of the issues that is given prominence at IPU, but it is also close to my heart, much as it's part of the strategy, is the issue of ensuring as parliamentarians we participate in the peace and security of the world. Because as parliaments, we usually, it is our duty to advise our governments, but at the same time to oversee the work of our government. So when the government decides to go to war, most of the constitution require the parliaments to give a go ahead. At the same time, when a war has broken between different nations, it is again the parliament which will always be overseeing what the government is doing, whether it's following international law and stuff like that. So peace and security is one of the issues that I give a lot of effort into. The other issue that I put a lot of emphasis on is climate change, because it affects all of us the same way. It knows no border. You can't say it's a particular country which is causing it, and then the impact usually is felt by everybody. So I also give a lot of effort into fighting climate change. maybe for the interest of the viewers, I also give a lot of effort into empowerment, because much as I'm a female president, I would like to see all the communities developing together. And in the beginning, you asked me about my experience when the budget was being read. I was actually very impressed by the fact that the government of India has read its budget, which is going to empower women, which is going to empower people of different tribes who haven't been given maybe a lot of incentives previously, but at the same time also the youth, they're going to receive different grants, scholarships to be able to attend college, but also attend internships, and the government is going to take care of that. So the third issue would be inclusivity, but also empowerment. So when I talk about inclusivity, I would like to again commend the government of India and the Lok Sabha for passing a law which is going to increase the number of women in the parliament, 33%. That's really something. So 1/3, we begin from there, and we believe it will keep growing. So empowerment is one of them, and I believe in economic empowerment, which is going to assist now the youth, the women, people who would otherwise not make it if the government wasn't having particular programs like. Here in India, I understand it's the caste or scheduled tribes. In other places, it's other people from other marginalized groups, like people with disabilities. So things like that. So that I would say I would like to see more inclusive parliaments of the world.
Very imperative priorities, I must say. But the role of IPU, of course, assumes paramount importance in the current scenario. How do you see the role of IPU in promoting democracy and human rights globally?
Yeah, so promotion of democracy is one of what we stand for at IPU, and we say for democracy for everyone. We want our parliaments to be democratic, but also because it is our parliaments which oversee the workings of the governments, we want the governments to practice democracy. Now, generally, how we would want to see the democracy being manifested in the world. Well, we make a close follow-up, and also when we feel like democracy is threatened in a particular country, we try to make a point. So we usually have resolutions passed. You know, sometimes the president or the leadership of IPU have to visit particular countries and meet different leaders just to communicate what IPU stands for. So in the 180 parliaments which are members of IPU, we try our best to, you know, make a difference in our own way. So at times we talk to each other at IPU because there's a forum where we discuss what happens in our countries. But if that doesn't work, we take action. So we go visit these countries and meet these leaders. Sometimes we meet leaders of the parliament, and if need be, we meet the executive, because democracy is not just about parliaments, it's about parliaments but also government. So if it is the government which is threatening the democratic institutions from acting in a particular way, then definitely IPU has to say something. And we have done this in several countries. Some countries have gone through war and they will have maybe transitional parliaments. So we reach out to them, and if need be, IPU creates a platform where we can provide capacity building to these members of the transitional parliaments. At times we invite them to IPU. As they get to learn, they become part of the family, and so they also start practicing for democracy for everyone, which is the motto for IPU.
Yes. So how can IPU strengthen cooperation between national parliaments?
Yeah, so every year we meet twice as the assembly, so we have 2 assemblies in a year, and what we do, we try to create engagement at that level, in the sense that the speakers of different member parliaments, at the same time the members, the delegates also. So it's also a platform for networking, and in the course of that, what we have tried to do is to make sure these speakers, when they meet at that at that platform, but also the delegates, when they meet at that platform, they create synergies where they can now establish not just working together as IPU, but also bilaterally. Like here, I have visited as president of IPU, but also Speaker of the National Assembly.
Yes.
It's because the Speaker of Lok Sabha visited Tanzania, so I was the host in last year, January, so when he visited Tanzania, and now I am here. So it's in situations such as this where you create a platform where people get to meet, they invite each other, and then they take it from there. And so what we have also been encouraging is for the parliaments to establish first friendship groups where you have parliaments relating bilaterally, but also there are situations where parliaments meet in their smaller geographical locations, you would say. So you have platforms like the Southern African Development Community Parliamentary Forum, and then you have the Pan-African Parliament, and then you have the EU Parliament. You also have BRICS, which India is part of. So when you have or you have Palatina for the case of Southern America, in that case you create platforms where all these, when they meet at IPU, they can now engage with each other and be able to establish good cooperations, which we think they are working very well.
Very well said. Engagement is very crucial. But talking about gender parity, what are the initiatives that the IPU is taking to promote gender equality across parliaments?
Yes, so we usually do this by dialogue. What we do is first, at IPU we have ongoing studies, like we do that every day, and we monitor all elections that go on in the world to just check how far has a country gone. Like there are those that are progressing very well, like I mentioned the case of India. You're making progress by the fact that you have now enacted a law that is going to see not less than 33% to the houses. And that goes up to the lower levels of the states, but also very low level villages and stuff. But we also monitor countries that don't have enough numbers, and then we reach out. I will give you examples. There are some countries which have had very low numbers, and as IPU, when we recognize that, we reach out to the leadership, tell them how they can do better, how they can learn from other countries. And some countries have changed laws, and now we have not less than 30% in those houses. Now globally, right now we stand at about 27%.
Right.
And if a country is lesser than that, we reach out. There are some countries which are lesser than 10%, so we reach out. We write to them, or at times the president makes a mission to visit them. And I had said, I'll give you an example. India, of course, is one of them, but also we have a country like Sierra Leone. They had the elections just recently, and they had elections after a law was changed to accommodate the not less than 30%. So right now, the parliament in Sierra Leone has not less than 30% in the house, which wasn't the case before. So these are good examples that we share with countries that don't have. In some cases, they put quotas in their constitutions. In some places, they put them in their legislation. In some places, you have the leadership appointing these women to the houses, and some of these countries are in the Middle East, so you have the king appointing these women to the houses. Those are good initiatives. So how we do that, that's what we do. In some cases, it is not between men and women parity. So maybe the parity is reached, or if it's not reached, you have sufficient number of women.
Right.
But you're talking about youth, maybe they're not included in the houses.
Yes.
We want to also see youth being part of the decision-making table. Why? Because globally, the statistics show the population of youth is higher than the other grouping. So you wouldn't want to be making decisions for the youth without them on the table. So that also. And of course, we go further. Now you start talking about other groupings, like when I mentioned about people with disabilities. We want them to also be there, talk about their challenges, so that as members of parliament, we can advise our governments to adopt policies that are going to be helpful to people with disabilities, or that are going to be helpful to women if it is women issue, or to other groups, because they're different from one country to the other. So that's what we do. We encourage countries to change their policies, change their constitution, change their laws, and in some cases we have been able to assist in if a country would like to change the law and they need to, they need to be empowered in terms of capacity building. We do that. We reach out, and yeah, so that's what we have been doing so far.
Well, absolutely. But also another very important aspect, Excellency, is of technology. How do you see the role of technology in empowering and, more importantly, transforming our parliaments?
On the issue of technology, well, we follow it up very closely, and just to inform you that we are abreast to those issues as well. We have a whole committee that is dealing with science and technology.
Yes.
And right now, what is on the table is the issue of artificial intelligence. It's being discussed in all spheres, and in the beginning you had mentioned the issue of human rights. As IPU, as a family of parliamentarians, we are concerned about the positive aspects of AI, artificial intelligence, but also the negative bit of it.
Yes, that's
Why?
right.
Because IPU is talking about for democracy for everyone. You don't want a situation where AI will impair the democratic values. At the same time, you don't want artificial intelligence to also interfere in human rights issues. You want people's privacy to be protected. You also want people's identities to be protected. You also want people's voices, democracy, to be protected. You don't want in a situation where, for instance, elections are rigged in the name of AI. They announce you're the winner while actually people voted for me. So people's voice will be impaired. So at the moment, we are working towards that, and I believe during the coming assembly, which is going to be in October, we are likely to come up with a resolution in terms of informing the community of parliamentarians how they can look into this issue of artificial intelligence and see how parliaments can start legislating, can start making regulations on how artificial intelligence may be used to the advantage of the people and not their disadvantage. So we would want to put a balance, not a situation where you say you can't ignore AI because it's there. Yes. And it's there to stay. Yes. And it's developing. But we want to create a platform where, or we want to create a platform or circumstances where our people will still be protected even with the artificial intelligence. So that's just an example, but we work in the area of science, including the issue of weapons, the use of automatic weapons and how it has affected people, so we do that. We give a lot of emphasis on science and technology as well.
Well, and that's work in progress, and that resolution will be cynosure of all eyes, of course. Yes, but talking about diverse interests, Your Excellency, how will the IPU balance the diverse needs and the interests of different parliaments of different nations?
Yes, well, what happens is that at IPU, every year we come up with, looking at our strategy, of course, we come up with a theme that runs in a year. So during the 2 assemblies that we meet in a year, we all concentrate on discussing those resolutions or the discussions that are going to be there. The sharing of experiences from countries will be around those themes. So for instance, this year, considering of what has been happening recently and even before, the issue of peace and security. So this year we are looking at peace and security. Now how we do it is that when delegates are taking the floor, they will be discussing those issues. So we put a theme around peace and security. So when we are discussing such issues, we believe that is the chance for parliaments now to come together on the issue of peace and security.
That's right.
Like now we mentioned about artificial intelligence. When countries will be taking the floor, when parliaments will be taking the floor, they will be sharing their experiences in these areas. And so at the end of the day, when a particular committee, if if the issue was put up by a committee, or if it is two rapporteurs who brought up their issue, then they will be taking into account all that has been said. And that, I believe, creates synergies between what is happening between one parliament and the other. And of course, like you said, it's true, because the world, I mean, the world is different. The impact, for instance, of certain things from one area may be different from others.
That's true.
Others may be considering maybe climate change as a matter of urgency. Others might feel like we have so many other things to worry about than this. So others will be saying maybe we should talk about girl education, and others are saying but our girls are already out there. So even with that, because we have usually a theme which runs through a year, we believe our discussions are more structured towards that, and that doesn't leave anybody out. But irrespectively, our rules and statutes allow what we consider as emergency items. So something might come up which is not really part of the theme that is there, but if the members agree this is an emergency, then it might be discussed under the rules that talk about emergency. So there are also chances that you might want to prioritize a certain thing, even if it's happening in just one country. But if we think, if the family of parliamentarians support it by vote, we will discuss that. So that has ever happened before.
Well,
so,
absolutely, absolutely. But before we wrap up this conversation, people of India have reposed their faith in Prime Minister Modi's leadership for a third consecutive time.
Yes.
Your thoughts on his leadership?
Yeah, so I will first begin from where I started. I started by saying I was impressed by the budget that was read in the House, and as you know, budgets are brought to the houses by the government. So it's very impressive that this the current Prime Minister has been leading the country towards development. But now when you talk about development, it's all sectors. You talk about infrastructure, you talk about social services, you talk about, you know, getting people out of poverty. You may not be able to get all of them at once, but at least there are programs to make sure we are in the right trajectory. So I would say his leadership, the fact that he got a third mandate, it shows that people have faith in him, but also they recognize the efforts that he has made. And coming from Tanzania, I would like to say it was great to have him. He visited Tanzania at some point, and then also our own president visited here. So we really look forward to the implementation of the agreements that were entered into here in different sectors of working together. At the same time, the cooperation that exists between my country and India, and this cooperation is in all areas. Maybe just one of the example is where you have a big community of Tanzanians here in India studying in all spheres, but I will mention health for now. So they are doing a good job in health because India has developed very much in the area of health. I mean, globally, this has nothing to do with just India, that's how we do things, no. And I believe in these 3 terms, now the 3rd term has just begun, I believe India is going to lead even more in this area of health. But maybe the last example would be, I have also learned about the indigenization of the production of defense appliances, you would say. So all this, I think it's something that you associate it with the Prime Minister Modi. So when you learn about where India was, where it has been recently, and where it's going, you really have hope. And yesterday, listening to the priorities that have been set, I think India is on the right trajectory, and I wish him all the best, and the people of India also all the best in this new era.
On that sanguine note, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective with us. What a pleasure to have you in our studio.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.